Alright, Part 232, Brake System Safety Standards for Freight and Other Non-Passenger Trains and Equipment and of the Train Devices. Subpart C, Inspection, Testing, and Requirements. Alright, subpart C, inspection, testing, and requirements. Scope. The subpart contains the inspection, testing, requirements of the brake system used in the freight and non-passenger train. The subpart also contains general training of the requirements for the railroad and contact personnel used to perform the required inspection and testing. Training requirements. Each for the contractor shall adopt and comply with the training qualification designation program for the employees to perform the brake system inspection, testing, and the maintenance for the purpose of this section. The contractor is defined as the person under the contract of the railroad or the car owner. The record required by this section will be maintained either electronically and written the part of this program, the railroad or the contractor shall identify the tasks and the relay of the inspection, testing, and maintenance of the brake system required for this part that must be performed by the railroad contractor, identify the skills and knowledge necessary to perform each of the tasks, develop and incorporate the training curriculum that includes both the classroom and hands-on lessons designed to impart the skills and knowledge of each, identify the necessary to perform each of the tasks, develop or incorporated training curriculum shall be specifically address the federal regulatory requirements contained in this part that are related to the performance of the tasks identified. Three, require all the employees to successfully complete a training curriculum that covers the skills and knowledge the employee will need to possess in order to perform the task required by the part of the employee will be responsible for performing, including the specific federal regulatory requirements may contain in this part related to the performance of the task in which the employee will be responsible. Require all the employees to pass a written oral examination covering the skills, knowledge, and the employee will need to possess in order to perform the task required for this part, but the employee will be responsible for performing, including specific federal regulatory requirements contained in the part related to the performance of the task in which the employee will be responsible for performing. 5. Requiring all personnel employees to individually demonstrate hands-on capability successful applying with the skill and knowledge that the employee will need to possess in order to perform the task required for this part, with the employee with responsible for the performing with the satisfaction of the employee supervisor designated instructor. An employee hired or working on prior to June 1st, 2010 with the railroad, but the contractor covered for this part will be considered to have met the requirements of portion of the requirements contained in paragraph B3 and B through B5 of this section of the emergency of the employee receiving the training and the testing on the specific federal regularity requirements contained with the part with related to the performance of the task which the employee will be responsible for performing it if and the training testing involved with the efficiency training previously received with the employee is determined by the railroad contractor to meet the requirements for the portion of the requirements contained in the paragraph B3 and B5 of the section. Such training testing can be documented as required in paragraph E1 through E4 of the section. The employee passes an oral, written, or practicable hands-on test developed and adopted by the railroad and contractor was determined by the railroad contractor to ensure the employee possesses the skills and knowledge of the portion of the skills and knowledge required for the paragraphs B3 through B5 of the section. Testing documented as required in paragraph E of the section. The railroad of the contractor certifies the group or segment of its employees had previously received training of the testing determined with the railroad contractor to meet the requirements for the portion of the requirements of the contained with the paragraph B3 through B5 of this section. Complete records of such training are not available if they're provided with the following conditions are met and are satisfied. The certification is placed within the employee training records required in the paragraph E of the section. The certification contains a brief description of the training provided with the approximate date on which the training was provided. C. Any employee determined to be trained pursuant with the paragraph is even a diagnostic oral written hands-on testing covering the training of which the paragraph is relied upon at the time of the employee received then his or her first periodic refresher training under paragraph B8 of the section. And any combination of the training, the testing control contained with the paragraphs B61 through B63 of the sections, paragraphs B3 through B5 of the section may be used to satisfy the training of the testing requirements of any employee in accordance with this paragraph. 7. Require supervisors to exercise oversight with the ensure that all the identified tasks are performed in accordance with the railroad written procedure and specified with the federal regulatory requirements contained in this paragraph. 8. The required periodic refresher training at an interval not to exceed the 3 years that includes the classroom and the hands-on training as well as the testing except for the employees that have completed their initial training under the paragraphs B3 through B6 of this part with the prior to April 1st, 2004 shall not be required to complete the first periodic refreshing training until 4 years after the completion of the initial training. Every 3 years thereafter, observing the evaluation of the actual performance of the duties may be used to meet the hands-on portion of the regulated requirement and provided with it. Such testing is documented as required in paragraph E of this section. 9. And a new brake system to training to qualification and designation program prior to the introduction of the revenue service. C. A railroad that operates train required with equipped with a two-way end of the train telemetry device pursuant to subpart E of this part, but each of the contractors shall maintain such a device shall adopt and comply with the training program that specifically address the testing and operation maintenance of the two-way and end of the train device for employees who are responsible for testing, operation, and maintenance of the device. The railroad that operates the training under the conditions required for the setting of the air brake pressure, the retaining of the valves shall adopt and comply with the training program which specifically addresses the proper use of the retainers, employees who are responsible for the using of the setting of the retainers. A railroad contractor shall maintain adequate records of the demonstrate for the current qualification statement status with all the personnel assigned to the inspector tester and maintain the train a brake system. The record required by the paragraph may be maintained either electronically or written shall be provided with the FRA upon request. These records shall include the following information concerning each of the such employee: the name of the employee, the date of each of the training course was completed, the content of each of the training course successfully completed, the employee scores on each of the testing taken demonstrating proficiency. 5. The description of the employee's hands-on performance applying for the skills and knowledge of the employee to possess in order to perform the task required for this part of the employee will be responsible for the performing of the basis for the finding that the skills and knowledge were successfully demonstrated. 6. The task required to be performed under this part within the employee is deemed qualified to be performed. 7. The identification of the person determining the employee has successfully completed the training necessary to be considered qualified to perform the task identified in the paragraphs E6 of this section. And 8. The date of the employee's statement. Statutes are qualified to perform the task identified with the paragraph E6 of this section expires due to the need for refreshing training. A railroad contractor shall adopt and comply with the planning of the periodically assess the effectiveness of the training program. One method of validation assessment of the code could be through the use of efficient testing or periodic review of the employee's performance. Alright, 232.205, Class 1 brake test initial terminal inspection. Each train and each car in the train shall receive a Class 1 brake test as described in paragraph C of this section by a qualified person as defined in statute 232.5 of the following points: location where the train is originally assembled, the initial terminal; a location where the train consists of the change other than by adding a single car or a solid block of cars except as provided in the paragraph B2 of this section; removing a single car or a solid block of cars; removing the cars determined to be defective under this chapter. 4. A combination of the changes listed in paragraph A21 through A23 of the section C statute 232.209 and 232.211 for the requirements related to the pickup of the cars and solid blocks for the cars en route. A location where the train is off the air of the period of more than 4 hours. A location where the unit of the cycle train has traveled 3,000 miles since its last Class 1 brake test. A location where the train has received the interchange if the train condenses of its change other than by removing the car with a solid block of the cars from the train, adding previously tested cars with previously tested solid blocks of the cars to train, changing the motive of the power, removing the changing of the cab caboose, or 5. Any of the combination of the changing listed in paragraph A5 of this section. Alright, if the changes other than the contained paragraph of the A5 through A51 through A55 the section are made up of the train with the consistent with the received interchange of the train will be moved within 20 miles and less of the railroad may conduct the brake test pursuant to statute 232.209 on this car is added to the train. B is reserved. B, except for the provided with the statute 232.209, each of the blocks of the car added to the train shall receive a Class 1 brake test as described in paragraph C of this section at the location where it is added to the train unless the solid block of the cars is compromised with the single previous train with the cars in which they previously received the Class 1 brake test have remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train line remaining connected other than removing the defective equipment since it's being removed from the previous train and have not been off the air for more than 4 hours. Alright, the solid block of cars is compromised with the cars for the solid single of the previous train for the cars which for the required to be separated with the multiple solid blocks of cars due to the space for the trackage constraints for the particular location when removed from the previous train, provided with the cars have the previous received the Class 1 brake test and have not been off the air for more than 4 hours, and the cars in each of the multiple blocks of the cars have remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train line remaining connected except for the removal of the defective equipment for more than the multiple solid block of cars shall be added to the train in some relative to order, no reclassification and when they're removed from the previous train, except for the removal of the defective equipment. C. A Class 1 brake test over the train shall consist of the following tasks and required. 1. The brake pipe leakage shall not exceed 5 psi per minute, or the airflow shall not exceed 60 cubic feet per minute. The leakage test. The brake pipe leakage leakage test shall be conducted as follows. 8. Charge the air brake system of the pressure at which the train will be operated, but the pressure at the rear of the train shall be within 15 psi of the pressure at which the train will be operated, but not less than 75 psi as indicated by accurate gauge of the end of the train device at the rear end of the train. Upon receiving the signal to apply the brakes for the test, make a 20 pound psi brake pipe service reduction. If the locomotive is used to perform the leakage of the test, if equipped with the means for maintaining the brake pipe pressure at a constant level during 20 psi brake pipe service reduction, the feature shall be cut out of during the leakage of the leakage test. With the brake valve laps or the pressure maintaining feature cut out, if so equipped, after the waiting of the 45 to 60 seconds, note the brake pipe leakage as indicated with the brake pipe gauge in the locomotive, which shall not exceed 5 psi per minute. The airflow method test. When the locomotive is equipped with the 26L brake valve equivalent brake pressure maintained with the maintained locomotive brake valve, a railroad may use the airflow method test as an alternative to the brake pipe leakage test. The airflow method test shall be performed as follows. Charge the air brake system to the pressure at which the train will be operated, with the pressure at the rear of the train shall be within 15 psi of the pressure at which the train will be operated, but not less than 75 psi as indicated by the accurate gauge end of the train device at the rear end of the train. B. Measure the airflow as indicated by the calibrated airflow method indicator, which shall not exceed 60 cubic feet per minute. 3. The airflow method indicator shall be calibrated with the accuracy in periodic intervals not exceeding 92 days. The airflow method indicator calibration testing orifices shall be calibrated at temperatures of not less than 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Airflow method indicator shall be accurate within 3 plus or minus 3 standard cubic feet per minute. The inspector shall take a position on each side of each of the cars sometimes during the inspection process so as to be available to examine or observe function of all the moving parts of the brake system on each of the car in order to make the determination and inspection required by this section. A roll-by inspection by the brake release as provided with the paragraph B8 of this section shall not be constitute any of the inspection over the side of the train for the purpose of this requirement. The train brake system shall be charged at the pressure at which the train will be operated, with the pressure at the rear of the train shall be within 15 psi of the pressure at which the train will be operated. Not less than 75 psi angle cock. The cutout cock shall be properly positioned. Air hose shall be properly coupled and shall not kink, bind, or fold, or be any other condition that restricts airflow. Examination must be made for the leaks and necessary repairs made to the reduced leakage to required minimum. Retained valves of retaining valve pipes shall be inspected, known to be in proper condition for service. For the brakes on each of the cars shall apply within response onto a 20 pound psi brake pipe service reduction and shall remain applied until the release of the air brake has been initiated with the controlling locomotive yard testing device. The brake shall not be applied at release until the proper signal is given. A car found with the brakes that fail to apply with the remaining applied may be retested or remain in the train if the retest is reconducted at the air pressure that is in which 15 psi of the air pressure at which the train will be operated. The retest may be conducted with either the controlling locomotive, the head of the end of the consisting of the suitable testing device described in Statute 232-217A, position at one end of the car being retested, and the retest being retested, and on the brakes shall be remained applied until the release is initiated after the period, which is no less than 3 minutes. If the retest is performed at the cars that are being retested with suitable devices, the compressed air in the car shall be depleted prior to the disconnection of the hose between the cars to perform the retest. Alright, 5. For cars equipped with an 8.5 inches or 10 inch diameter brake cylinder, piston travel shall be within 6 to 9 inches. If the piston travel is found to be less than 6 or more than 9 inches, it must be adjusted to nominal 7.5 inches for the cars not equipped with an 8.5 inch or 10 inch brake diameter brake cylinders. The piston travel shall be within piston travel stenciled marked on the side with the badge plate. Minimum brake cylinder piston travel to the truck mounted with the brake cylinder must be sufficient to provide with the proper brake shoe. The clearance when the brakes are released, the piston of the travel must be inspected on each of the freight car while the brakes are applied. 6. The brake rigging shall be properly secured and shall not bind or fold or otherwise adversely affect the operation of the brake system. 7. All brake and parts of the brake equipment shall be properly secured on all the cars with the bottom of the rod passed through the truck bolster and secured with the cotter pins equipped with the locking devices to prevent their accidental removal. The bottom of the rod safety support arcs are not required. When the release is initiated by the control of the locomotive, the yard type of the device, the brake of each of the freight cars shall be inspected to verify that it did release, that it may be performed by a roll-by inspection. The roll-by inspection of the brake release is performed by the train speeding shall not exceed 10 miles per hour. The qualified person performing the roll-by inspection shall communicate the results of the inspection to the operator of the train. The operator of the train shall note the successful completion of the release portion of the inspection with the record required with the paragraph D of this section. Alright, D, where the railroad is collective of the bargaining agreement provides for the carman is to perform the inspection for the test required for the section, the carman alone is considered a qualified person. In these circumstances, the railroad shall ensure that the carman is properly trained and designated as a qualified person for the qualified mechanical inspector pursuant to the requirements of this part. The railroad shall notify the locomotive engineer that Class 1 brake test was satisfactorily performed and provided with the information required with the paragraph to the locomotive engineer place for the information in the cab of the controlling of the cab locomotive of the following test. The information required with the paragraph may be provided with the locomotive engineer by any means determined appropriate by the railroad. However, the written or electronic record of the information shall be retained within the cab of the controlling locomotive until the train reaches its destination. The written or electronic record shall contain the date and time number of the freight cars inspected, identifying the qualified person performing the test and the location where the Class 1 brake test was performed. Alright, F. Before adjusting piston travel, the working of the brake rigging, cutting out cock of the brake branch must be closed, and air reserves must be voided of all air pressure. When the cutout cocks are provided in the brake cylinder pipes, these cutout cocks only may be closed, and all air reserves may be closed, and air reserves need not to be voided of all air compressed air. 232.207 Class 1A brake test of 1,000-mile inspection. Except as provided with the statute 232.213, each of the train shall receive the Class 1 brake test performed by a qualified person as defined in statute 232.5 at the location of not more than 1,000 miles from the point of where any of the car of the train last received the Class 1 or Class 1 air brake test. The most restricted car of the block of the cars of the train shall determine the location of the test. The Class 1 air brake test of the train shall consist of the following tasks and requirements. Brake pipe leakage shall not exceed the 5% 5 psi per minute. Airflow shall not exceed 60 cubic feet per minute. The brake pipe leakage test of airflow method shall be conducted pursuant to the requirements of contained statute 232.205C1. The inspector shall position himself or taking the position on each of the cars sometime during the inspection process so that to be able to examine and observe all the function of all the parts of the braking system on each of the car in order to make the determination of the inspection required by this section. Alright, 3. The air brake system shall be changed for the charged with the to the air pressure which the train will be operated with the pressure at the rear of the train shall be within 15 psi of the pressure at which the train will be operated, not less than 75 psi indicated by the accurate gauge of the or at the end of the device of the rear end of the train. The brakes on each of the cars shall apply with a response with the 20 psi of the brake pipe surface reduction shall remain applied with until the release is initiated by the controlling locomotive. A car found with the brakes that fail to apply with the remain will apply with the retest of the remains in the train if the retested in conducted as prescribed in statute 232.205C4. Otherwise, defective equipment may only be moved to pursuant to the provision that is contained in statute 232.15 if applicable. 5. The brake rigging shall be properly secured and shall not bind or fold or otherwise adversely affect the operation of the brake system. 6. All parts of the brake equipment shall be properly secured. All railroads shall designate the location of the Class 1 brake test will be performed. The railroad shall be furnished with the Federal Railroad Administration and upon the request of the description of each location designation. A railroad shall notify the FRA's associated administrator with the safety in writing with 30 days prior to any change of the locations designated for such a test and inspection. Failure to perform a Class 1 brake test on the train at a location designated with the pursuant to the paragraph that constitutes a failure to perform a proper Class 1A brake test if the train is due to such a test at location. In the event of the emergency, so the alters the normal train operation, such as the derailment, other unusual circumstances, adversely affects the safe operation of the train. The railroad is not required to provide a prior written notification change in the location where the Class 1 brake test is in performed, but the location not on the railroad's list is designated location for the performing Class 1 brake test, provided that the railroad notifies the FRA Association Administrator of Safety and with the FRA Regional Administrator within 24 hours after the designation has been changed and the reason for that change. Alright, 209 Class 2 brake test intermediate inspection. A location other than the initial terminal of the train Class 2 brake test shall be performed by a qualified person defined in Statute 232.5 of the following of equipment will be added to the train. Each of the car, the solid block of the car is defined in Statute 232.5 that has not been previously received in the Class 1 brake test or has been off air for more than 4 hours. Each solid block of the car is defined in Statute 232.5 that is compromised with the car of more than one of the previous trains, except this provided in paragraph A4 of this section. Each of the solid block of the cars is compromised with the cars only with the previous train, but the cars which have not remained continuously consecutively coupled together with the train remaining in the connected since the beginning removed from the previous train. The solid block of the cars is considered to have remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train line remaining connected since the being removed from the previous train if it has been changed only by removing the defective equipment. 4. Each solid block cars that have the compromise with the cars with the single of the previous train with the cars which were required to separate them into the multiple solid blocks of the cars due to the space with the trackage constraint in particular location when removed from the previous train. If they are not added to the same relative order as when they were removed the previous train, if the cars in each of the multiple blocks of the cars have not been remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train line remaining connected except for the removal of defective equipment. The Class 2 brake test shall consider the following task requirements, and 1. The brake pipe leakage shall not exceed 5 psi per minute, or airflow shall not exceed 60 cubic feet per minute. The brake pipe leakage test, airflow method testing shall be conducted on the entire train pursuant to the requirements contained in Statute 232.205C1. The air brake system shall charge with the pressure in which the train will be operated. The pressure at the rear of the train shall be within 15 psi of the pressure in which the train will be operated with not less than 75 psi. As indicated by the accurate gauge of the end of the train device. The device is at the rear end of the train. 3. The brakes on each of the car added to the train on the rear of the car of the train shall be inspected to ensure that they apply with the response of 20 psi with the brake side reduction and remain with the applied with the until the release is initiated with the control locomotive of the car found with the brakes that fail to apply with the remain apply with the made rear tested remain the train is the rear test that were conducted with prescribed in Statute 232.205C4. Otherwise, defective equipment may only be removed pursuant to the provision 232.15F applicable. When the release is initiated with the brakes at each of the car end of the train and at the rear of the car of the train shall be inspected to verify that they did release. This may be performed by a roll-by inspection, or if the roll-by inspection of the brake release is performed with the train speed shall not exceed 10 miles per hour with the qualified person performing the roll-by inspection shall be communicated with the results of the inspection with the operator of the train. 5. The train proceeding with the operator of the train shall know that the brake pipe pressure at the rear of the train is being restored. C is an alternative rear car brake application. Real proportion of the test. The operator of the train shall determine the brake pipe pressure of the train is being reduced as indicated with the rear car gauge and the end of the train telemetry device. That then the brake pipe pressure of the train is being restored and indicated with the rear car gauge at the end of the train telemetry device. When the end of the train telemetry device is used to comply with any of the test requirements for this part, the phrase brake pipe pressure of the train is being reduced means a pressure reduction of the test to at least 5 psi. Of the phrase the brake pipe pressure of the train is being restored means the pressure increases at least 5 psi if any of the electronic communication links between the controlling locomotive and the remotely controlled locomotive attached to the rear of the end of the train utilized to determine the brake pipe pressure is being restored. The operator of the train shall know that the air brake is functional and is intended for the remotely controlled locomotive. Alright, each of the cars, solid block of the cars received the Class 2 brake test pursuant to this section. When added to the train shall receive a Class 1 brake test at the next forward location where the facilities are available for performing such a test. Alright, Class 232.211, Class 3 brake test, train line, continuate inspection. A Class 3 brake test shall be performed on the train with the qualified personnel defined in Statute 232.5 with the testing of the train brake system when configuration of the train has been changed in certain ways, and in particular with the Class 3 brake test, they shall be performed at the location where any of the following of the changes occur with the configuration of the train occur, where the locomotive of the caboose is changed, with the car of the block of the car is removed from the train, with the consistent otherwise remaining intact, At the point of the other initial terminal train of the terminal for the train where the car of the solid block of the cars and compromised for the car of the only one previous train with the cars which have remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train remaining with the connected other than removing the defective equipment, since they being removed from the previous train, but that it may be previously received with the Class 1 brake test, and that has not been off the air for more than 4 hours is added to the train. At a point other than the initial terminal of the train where the solid block of the cars are compromised with the car, compromised of cars and single previous train is added with the train, provided with the solid block of the cars required to be separated into a multiple solid block of cars due to space trackage constraints and a particular location when removed from the previous train, but the cars have the previous received the Class 1 brake test, have not been off the air for more than 4 hours, and the cars in each of the multiple blocks of the cars have remained continuously and consecutively coupled together with the train line and remaining connected except for them from removal of defective equipment. Furthermore, the multiple solid blocks of the cars must be added to the train in the same relative order, no reclassification as when removed from the previous train, except for the removal of the defective equipment. 5. At the point other than the initial terminal of the train where the car with the solid block of the cars have been received with the Class 1 or Class 2 brake test at this location prior to the beginning added to the train that has not been off the air for more than 4 hours is added to the train. Class 3 brake test shall be consist of the following task requirements. 1. The train brake shall be charged to the pressure at which the train will be operated. At the pressure at the rear of the train shall not be less than 60 psi, indicated with the rear of the end of the train by an accurate gauge or end of the train device. The brake of the rear car, the train shall apply with the response the 20 psi with the brake pipe served with the reduction shall be remained with the applied with the release is initiated with the control locomotive. When the release is initiated with the brake shoe, the rear car of the train shall be inspected to verify that it did release. Before proceeding, the operator of the train shall know that the brake of the pipe of the pressure at the rear of the tray is being restored. As an alternative to the rear of the car brake application release portion of the test, it should be determined that the brake pipe pressure of the train is being reduced and indicated by the rear of the car gauge at the end of the trailing telemetry device. Then the brake pipe pressure of the train is being restored as indicated with the rear car gauge and of the train telemetry device. If an electric radio communication link between the controlling locomotive and the remotely controlled locomotive is attached with the rear end of the train device is utilized to determine the brake pipe pressure that is being restored. The operator of the train shall know that the air brakes of the function as intended with the remotely controlled locomotive. Alright, D. Whenever the continuity of the brake pipe is broken and interrupted, if the train considers otherwise removed with the remaining unchanged, it must be determined that the brake pipe pressure of the train is being restored as indicated by the rear car gauge at the end of the train device prior to the proceeding. In the absence of the accurate rear car gauge at the end of the trailing telemetry device, it must be determined that the brakes on the rear of the car train applied and released in the response to the air pressure changes made in the controlling locomotive. 232, 213 extended haul trains. I'm going to take a pee break.